Beloved, I'm going to tell you a story this morning. When the Lord spoke to me, it was very early hours of the morning during the course of this week. And at the same time, while I got up, I opened my books and I started to write and I started to look for the scriptures and put it down together. I did that on my bed because it was very early in the morning, and Sister Nash got up and she told me a dream that was so profound that the dream was right in line with what I'm writing down. And she couldn't understand the dream, but what I was writing down would explain the dream. So from there, the Lord taught me more and more, and exposed more and more. And I have to tell you that it's a tremendous discovery. Not that we didn't know some stuff, but just to see it unfold, it was amazing. I want to tell you that the entire gospel, if you are a Christian student, if you are interested in learning about God, who He is, not just visiting on a Christmas morning, but I'm talking about if you really truly want to understand what Christianity is, what your position is, who you are, and the reason why you are who you are. The entire gospel, the good news, is based on a marriage ceremony. It seems like a strange thing to say. The good news, you'll understand by the time I'm finished what I mean, but the gospel is based on a wedding ceremony that will one day take place in heaven between the groom and his bride. That celebration cannot be eclipsed by anything else. Everything that started leads up to that point when the groom and the bride become one. And I'm going to help you to understand how. I want you to say these two words because they form the basis of our understanding. The Hebrew word for bride is kala. You know, like kalas? Kallah. So, if you're talking about the church being a bride of Christ, the church is actually called kala. And the name of the groom in Hebrew is chatan. So, chatan and kalas are going to be in a marriage ceremony one day in heaven where the party will not end. And I'm going to start by helping you to understand the Jewish ceremony of a wedding. Before I take you there, I want to read to you the book of Revelations chapter 12, verse 3 to 5. And another sign appeared in heaven, behold, a great fiery red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 diadems on his head. His tail drew 1/3 of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth, to devour her child as soon as it was born. She bore a male child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and a child was caught up to God and His throne. May God bless the reading of His precious word. In the physical realm, when Jesus was born in a manger, we all know the story. What happened with the wise men, what happened with the shepherds, what happened at the inn. But what we haven't noticed was what was going on in the spirit realm. And Revelations tell us what was going on in the spirit realm. Revelation tells us when this child was being born, a fiery, in other words, the devil was standing over that child and wanting to kill him before he can become. So he used, as you know, Herod and all these other people to hunt this child down and try and kill him. But you and I know the child was spared and was grown and died for us. Now, the book of Revelation is what we were teaching on, so that's why I'm referring to that point when we talk about the birth of Christ. But who was this Christ? I'm going to tell you a story about when Jewish couples get married. Now, I'm talking about rituals and traditions that was preceding Jesus being born. I'm talking about from the Old Testament. God gave rules and regulations to the priests regarding what must happen when a marriage ceremony takes place. And this is what happens. It's a very interesting thing. First thing must happen is that the groom's father must identify a bride for his wife. For his son. The groom has nothing to do with the choice. The father of the groom must make the choice. And we learn this also, we can see it in action when Abraham was looking for a wife for his son, Isaac. And then he sent his servant, a messenger, to travel to a land of his fathers. And he said, go find me a woman there who is worthy of my son, and I will give you the family name. There is a young lady there whose name is Rebecca. I want you to go and organize that relationship. So the father sent a servant to go and make a woman available for his son. Now we know now, it plays out in the Jewish custom that if you're a boy, your father makes he's the agwa. He makes the arrangements. But he makes the arrangements with the father of the bride. He doesn't make arrangements with the bride. He makes arrangements with her father. And then her father has to whisper in her ear. Those are the terms used. Whisper in her ear, in her ear, and ask the daughter, there's a boy, his father wants him for you. What do you say? She either says, she cannot be coerced, she cannot be forced. She has to agree for the contract to be valid. And if she agrees, then she tells her dad, and then her father contacts the groom's father and says, we're on. The two of them then negotiate a price, what you and I know today as a dowry. The price that must be paid for this bride. And the bride has value to her father's household. He must give the father an equal value because he will be gaining the asset of another family member while her father will be losing that asset. So he must give her the value, give the father the value of his daughter. And so that word in Hebrew is called matan or mohar. There's two terms, mohar and matan. In Hebrew it's mohar. And then a matan, a bottom, a gift. So he must give a dowry to the father, which is a mohar, and he must give a matan to the bride as a gift. So the father of the groom has a lot of money to expend. He has to pay the father and he has to give money to the bride. And generally they used to give jewelry, gold, and all sorts of ornaments that are of value as a gift to the bride. And once that ceremony is taken place, there will be, I'm giving you the Jewish terms because you need to identify and recognize. So no expense was spared, and then there will be what they call a marriage contract. In Hebrew, the word is ketubah. That marriage contract will be signed by the wife or the future wife, the bride and the groom. And they will put their signatures, but the main signature was mainly the groom. If you don't mind, I'm going to read to you the actual words written in a Jewish marriage contract. This is what the groom promises in the marriage contract. I will work for thee, honor thee, provide for and support thee in accordance with the practice of Jewish husbands who work for their wives, honor, provide, and support them in truth. So the job of the groom in signing is making a commitment that he is going to take care of this bride from this moment on. The contract also verifies that whatever belongs to him is now hers. All his rights, all his privileges, all his power transfers onto the bride. From that moment on, in English we call that an engagement, or we call that in the Old English a betrothal. So the wife or the bride is now betrothed to her groom. And at that betrothal ceremony, the marriage registers are signed. In other words, it is now legal. They are legally married. So that engagement is not really just what you and I have with the changing of ring. This is the signing of documents. The marriage is done. It's secured at that engagement ceremony. Now that wife, that bride, is bestowed with the gifts from the husband. Whatever gifts you want to give, whatever you ask in my name, I will give it to you. Whatever you ask in my name, I will give it to you. That is the promise of the groom to his bride at the signing of the ceremony. Now, strange things happen in the Jewish ceremony. I'm going to take you through it. The engagement in Hebrew is called erusin. So where they are legally married, then something strange happens, which very few people know, but it's in the Jewish texts. It's called a mikvah, M-I-K-V-A-H. A mikvah is a baptism where the wife is baptized, or the future wife, and the husband or the groom is baptized. It is a spiritual cleansing of the both. So they have a baptism after they sign the register, after the agreement is made, and then he promises that everything that is his is hers. Then another strange thing happens during that ceremony. The groom offers his bride jewelry and one more thing, wine to drink, as a symbol and a commitment that they belong to each other. And then he leaves her and he goes away. He goes away for that interval period. What does he go to do? He goes to look for a place where he and his bride can live after they married. Usually, the groom doesn't buy a own house. He goes and stays with his father in a corner or in a portion of the house where his father lives. And when the time is right, he comes back for his bride and he collects her and he takes her there. The thing is, the time, now you can look this up because it's Jewish tradition, it's before Jesus even came. The time that he is away from her is usually 1 year. So he marries, legally signs, makes commitments, and he goes away. And he comes back, the waiting period is normally a year. But it can be earlier or it can be later. But the person that makes the decision of when to come, when the groom must come collect his bride, that person alone is the groom's father. Nobody else. Nobody knows. The bride has no idea when he's coming back. But she must have candles and oil lamps so that if he happened to come at midnight, she must be ready to go. And when he comes, the order of tradition is that he comes with the sounding of a horn. And they announce that he's coming. And then he comes and does something called a nisuan or nisuin. It comes from the Hebrew word nasa or naso. Naso means to lift up. The ceremony is called nisuin. He comes to lift up or to carry away his bride, for whom he has legally paid, for whom he has made commitments. He comes to take her to be with his father where he is. Because he says, I have prepared a place for you in my father's house. If it wasn't so, I won't even come for you. But I'm telling you, it's prepared. So I'm coming back for you, but only my father knows when. All you have to do is be ready, because when I come, you must be ready. I can come at any time. But I will give you clues as to when I'm going to come. And so, this marriage ceremony that will take place when this whole trumpet sounds, he comes and carry, it is a 7-day wedding procession. 7. When you having your wedding procession here, there'll be a tribulation down here. How long? 7 years. And the wedding ceremony, in fact, in Jewish tradition, 7-day wedding ceremony. In other words, there's dancing. There is no more fun Jewish tradition than a wedding. Drinking, dancing, enjoying. In fact, the groom doesn't touch wine until that day of the celebration. Until he brings his bride back home. Now, if you look at everything that happens in a Jewish wedding, and everything Jesus told, he says, I'm coming back for my bride. I'm coming back for those that are mine. So on this Christmas day, the groom of Christ arrived. So what was the price that was paid? Because there has to be an agreement between the two fathers. If you didn't realize this, the human being was first belonging to God. Then the human being became a child of the devil. And if the Lord wants you to buy you back, he has to pay the price that the devil demands. And the devil demanded the blood of the Son, thinking that he might not do it. For he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves. We were belonging to which kingdom? Darkness. Let's look at another scripture. First Peter chapter 1 verse 18. For you know that it was not with the perishable things such as silver and gold, the price that I paid for you, the gifts, that you were redeemed. Redeemed means bought back from your father, the devil. They were redeemed from an empty way of life handed down to you from your ancestors. In other words, you were living in sin because you inherited sin. I bought you back. From where, and I didn't buy you with gold and silver. I bought you back with my blood. Let's go back. We look at Psalms 49:15. This promise was there for very long. But God will redeem me from the realm of the dead. He will surely take me to himself. Let's look at Mark chapter 10 verse 45, and then we finish with the scriptures. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. In other words, if you want a girl from the father, your father was the devil, because you are belonging to the kingdom of darkness. You are belonging to the realm of Hades. Your spirit and soul were dead. And so God says to the father, he's your old father, the devil, my son is coming for his bride. What's the price must I pay? And the devil said to him, the blood of your son. And when Jesus arrived on Christmas morning or Christmas evening, the devil wanted to get rid of him there, because he cannot pay a price, and which means that he'll buy back the bride. He'll buy back you, redeem you as a ransom, because that's a ransom. That's what a ransom is. He wants something for you. The devil wants something because he owns you. He tricked you. You are in his kingdom. So he says, if you want them back, this is the ransom, the blood of your son. And if you pay it, so he was stopping Christ from rising up on this Christmas day. This was a victory day, where your groom has arrived. He's coming to sign the marriage ceremony, which he finished it 2,000 years ago. He signed it in blood. And he says, anything you ask for, that's your right, because you and I are now married. I'm coming back for you. And when I come, I'll take you to be with me, because you'll be together. Now, the price, the ransom that he asked, Jesus went on the cross. He paid the price. And then, if you remember, I told you, it is the groom that must give a gift, that must pay a price. It mustn't be forced. In other words, Jesus cannot be forced to do something. He must willingly give his life. When you give a gift to the father-in-law, you have to give it willingly. That's why they were trying to make it that Jesus must rebel. Because once that was done, the price was paid, the bride is his. Now, the thing is, with Christmas Day, it is a good time to ask the bride to be. God's Son came for you. He wants you. Question is, do you want the offer? Because God will not force you. He won't take you by force. He paid the price. If you want, your room is waiting. If you want Christmas Day, if you want Jesus as your Savior, your Redeemer, as the person that bought you back from the devil's kingdom, if you want that, you won't be slaves anymore. You will be free, but only if you want it. If you don't want it, he will not force you. He stands at the door and he knocks. Jesus says in the book of John chapter 14:14, ask anything in my name. If you are mine, you will have it. That's your privilege, because listen, we don't have to wait for the wedding day. We finished the signing of the register 2,000 years ago. The marriage is already legal. It's just the waiting period, and we don't know when. But when he comes, my job is to keep you ready. My second job is to make an invitation that your Savior waits, your Redeemer waits. Because the whole gospel is all about God redeeming you from darkness for that great marriage day.